Is Daemon stupid? Are your characters stupid? Is that what we're going for? What's up, everyone, and welcome back to HateWatchers. Today we continue on with our weekly breakdowns and reviews of House of the Dragon with episode 3, entitled Rhaenyra Triumphant. Now let's get right into the breakdown. And you already know that means spoilers ahead. We open up with Lord Douche Hightower sashaying out to meet Daemon Targaryen, who has his dragon homies backing him up. What's up? Oh, you don't What's up? What's up? Daemon tells Lord Douche that they only need to get on their knees and suck. Up to Rhaenyra and they may live. Otherwise, Daemon says they'll settle this with a hairstyle competition, putting up Ulf's dirty drunkard locks against this guy whose haircut puts the bowl in bold John Roxton. Douche chooses to get on his knees, but Daemon has one more request, a miniature version of himself.
Breathtaking. I shall call him Mini-Me.
So the Hightowers hand over Daeron Targaryen, Alicent's son. In King's Landing, Rhaenyra is recovering from her intestinal issues, so now Daemon is ready to invite her to bed.
At any rate, we must begin.
With all of the action for the foreseeable future done with, Rhaenyra turns to managing the day-to-day of the city. And she has no time when Daemon tries to show off his mini-me. Corlys asks another brother where all the loot went, but even with empty coffers, Rhaenyra is still demanding a gaudy coronation to celebrate her, while the people starve. On the way out, Rhaenyra, big and strong, makes her final commands before getting totally punked by a rat. Trying to pay for her party, Rhaenyra asks Alicent for some money. Money me, or I'll be the next one to kiss you, she says. Having not read the books, Alicent then tells Rhaenyra that Sunfire is dead. Then Rhaenyra, not fully free and clear of her intestinal issues after all, interrupts the discussion to relieve the growing tension. After being startled to see Jace actually was just napping, she meets with the High Septon, who won't anoint her because it's just too much paperwork and too close to the weekend. And even Rhaenyra's soft hands, untarnished by labor, won't change his mind. At dinner, Corlys introduces his new sons, born totally legitimate just a day ago. Can you believe how fast they've grown? Wow. But when Corlys announces Alan as his heir to his whole big nothing now, Rhaenyra's bowel distress resurfaces. Later, Rhaenyra has no one to tuck her in, so she just stands there for hours, before ending up in Daemon's bed, where she has a nice draft to complain about. The next morning, Rhaenyra gets dolled up by her large staff so she can go tell the common people she's just like them. Then she gets her period. Riveting content. But in the throne room, she finds just a bunch of people that complain more than she does. The Democratic Socialists of Westeros have taken root in King's Landing, and they convince Rhaenyra to tax the rich. Then she's rudely interrupted by Ratatouille, asking what he should cook for the upcoming feast. Rhaenyra can read the tea leaves. She's in trouble. But none of it is her fault, of course. And now Baela, having also not read the book, confirms Sunfire is dead through her report. With Pride Month now over, the flags come down immediately, and it's time for the 3 dragon seeds to receive their new nicknames. And after giving Ulf his nickname, Rhaenyra barely holds herself back from blurting out the obvious follow-up nickname for Adam.
Ulf the White?
Then Daemon measures each of their hair to make sure none are as long as his. Then Hugh asks what's for dinner, and Rhaenyra manages to make her first decision of the episode, with Ratatouille rushing off to the kitchen to start. Later, Rhaenyra asks Alicent for advice on how to rule, only for Rhaenyra to then tell her she won't listen to her advice. Rhaenyra holds a banquet for the fancy nobles, and Ratatouille's feast, ironically, is all of Ratatouille's rodent brethren. Rhaenyra informs everyone about the new tax on the rich before this guy shows up, asking if there's going to be any ping pong after dinner. Daemon tells Rhaenyra they can solve their problems through conquest and become gods, but Rhaenyra would rather settle in and quibble and squabble. To calm her mind, she watches Daeron sleep, before stealing his toy bird. The next day, she tells the common folk they will no longer go hungry, because they're going to eat the rich, before she starts handing out body parts. Later, Corlys is mad at Rhaenyra for not legitimizing his illegitimate children, even going as far as to quote his dead brother.
Your son Joffrey is a bastard.
Rhaenyra then informs Alicent that she intends to send Daeron to the Wall, before rudely saying that Corlys can go with him.
He will take the black.
Rhaenyra is informing Daeron that he's going to a nice little island run by Joffrey Epsteinton, but then Alicent makes it clear that this isn't Daeron and they've been had. But Rhaenyra puts aside this shocking revelation to do her queenly duties and check the boy for lice. Then a dragon keeper shows up, telling her that somehow the Hightower army and their dragon overpowered him, the only person Team Black left behind to prevent this, and they've taken Tumbleton. Rhaenyra then has all the pride flags burnt because Targaryen Incorporated doesn't believe in it the second the calendar hits July 1st, and the episode comes to an end. And with that, we've reached that point in the video where we have to decide if this episode was a great watch or a hate watch. And for me, this one is definitely a hate watch. In what would have been the theoretical start to Season 3, we got the clearest sign that this story, for the creators, above all else, is about Rhaenyra's troubles from her first days to her last. The ground campaign being fought between the Starks and the Rivermen and the Lannisters and the Hightowers is cut short, condensed, taking place off-screen, or being left out entirely. But we have time for Rhaenyra to suffer through her period and her not sleeping well. Because men are just off making war and creating problems that are left for the women of this show, who only have the best of intentions in mind, to deal with. I get it. That was always the creators' intention from the start of the series. But it doesn't mean we have to find it interesting just because they dangle dragons in front of our faces every once in a while. In that spirit, this episode was all about Rhaenyra's mounting crises she needs to attend to as she tries to thread the needle by fixing everything without pissing anyone off. And she's off to a crappy start, heralding dark times ahead. And the episode was full of unnerving shots and music showing us the building stress Rhaenyra's facing. I understand the importance of showing us things that threaten Rhaenyra's tenuous new hold on the city, but on its own, I don't think an entire episode needed to be devoted to it. It's just not interesting enough on its own. And I think it's more effective for these problems to mount over the course of a season. Instead, we go from Rhaenyra triumphant, the tongue-in-cheek title of the episode, to nearly the Mad Queen in the course of an hour. 0 to 100 changes aren't very palatable for character development. And you'd think they'd have some idea how many fans were just barely holding on after Season 2 and kind of downplay the problems the show has had. But they're just gonna double down instead. You got 2 episodes with dragons, fuckers. What more do you want? Now we can deal with Menzies and prattling. And that other problem of characters being stupid reared its ugly head once again. Why, when he took Daeron hostage, did Daemon leave the boy's dragon Tessarion behind? Why wouldn't Daemon question Tessarion's lack of reaction to him taking his rider, or Tessarion not trying to follow Daeron? Daemon, who grew up around dragons and has been around dragons for his entire life, doesn't pick up on Tessarion's weird double take when it looks at fake Daeron? Is Daemon stupid? Are your characters stupid? Is that what we're going for? On that note, the whoopsie doodle with Daeron was the only thing that piqued my interest this episode, and even that can be argued to be another instance of stupidity forming events in this story. Although Corlys turning against Rhaenyra is fairly intriguing too. Corlys, from day one, has been obsessed with securing his legacy, and with a hypocritical Rhaenyra refusing to aid in this, he's finally had enough. Now this taking this long might also be stupid in its own right. Daemon killed his brother, and Corlys didn't say a word. As far as Corlys believes, Rhaenyra had his son Laenor killed. His daughter died trying to birth Daemon's child. Corlys lost his wife, his home, and much of his fleet fighting for Rhaenyra, and he hasn't raised his voice until now? Anyway, Rhaenyra alienated the strongest ally she has, which was dumb of her. She's on a mission to please everyone, and thus will please no one. Now, this show being based on Alicent and Rhaenyra being former besties turned enemies has kinda made their interactions feel tedious. Rhaenyra is trying to be grateful and lenient, but also realistic with her in what justice she must dispense, but Alicent constantly scoffs at every decision Rhaenyra makes. Then Rhaenyra asks Alicent's advice only to rebuff her, and these back and forths are just more annoying to watch than they are dramatic or engaging. And I mean, not taking decisive actions, not listening to most of the advice thrown her way, save for that from a former hooker Rhaenyra took advantage of, it just makes Rhaenyra look comically not cut out for this role. And it's largely her own doing at this point. So do they think people really want to watch a show about a weak, ineffective leader digging their own hole? Her story's not tragic at this point, it's just kinda dumb. And speaking of Alicent, I find it funny when she complains about how the men didn't trust her with information about the treasury, like she didn't just turn the city over to the enemy for her own life. Then she complains when Rhaenyra says she needs to kill her sons, the ones she helped foster a coup with. Alicent is also at the heart of all of these fuck-ups, like, look inward, lady, before blaming others. The show touched on the idea of the established order of the kingdom, in this case the Faith and the High Septon, hating dragons and viewing them as an abomination. One of the cooler theories to come out of Fire and Blood is the Maester conspiracy. I won't spoil anything, so if you want to look it up, I think it's interesting, and I'm glad they at least almost kinda maybe touched on it in this episode. With all the gusto of Rhaenyra's wet farts, however. And I liked seeing Dan Fogler from Balls of Fury and Take Me Home Tonight in the episode. That was fun. But that's about as fun as it got for me. The next episode looks to be covering the Battle of Tumbleton, so that should heat things up a bit. But this one was never going to match the intrigue and explosiveness of the first 2 episodes, and even those were riddled with flaws. So I don't think this episode did anything to hang on to those viewers that are on the edge of their seat. Not in expectation, but in wanting to get up and leave. Now let's get into some book stuff. As always, I'm not really going beyond how the events of this episode played out in the book, but I'll always give you another spoiler warning before we get into it. Now I'm going to start with Sunfire. Without spoiling larger events down the road, Sunfire being dead would change one pretty significant thing. And as such, I lean towards Sunfire not being dead, and this is a misdirection. But they've kind of written themselves into the corner of stupidity either way. If Sunfire is dead, it will lead to a massive departure from what I believe will be the final events of this show. If Sunfire isn't dead, you've just had like 5 prominent characters tell us that Sunfire is dead. Meaning all of those characters are stupid and can't be listened to. I thought it might be possible that Baela saw Meleys, Rhaenys's dead dragon, so decayed that she couldn't tell the difference, but the preview for the next episode shows us Meleys the Red very much still identifiable. So that possibility's out. Now, again, if Sunfire isn't dead, then many of the characters in this show are stupid and can't properly identify a dragon. Or if a dragon's dead or not. And I feel like if there's any piece of advice the creators of this show need to hear at this point, it's don't let stupidity and mistakes shape your story if it's not a story like Dumb and Dumber. But if the dragon is dead, then the ending changes. So the cake is stupid no matter how they slice it now. Good job. In the books, Daeron is not handed over to the Blacks, and the Hightowers don't feign their acquiescence. They're slowly marching toward King's Landing at this point, winning battles along the way and sacking towns. Which makes them appear like formidable opponents, whereas the show seems to want to make them look more like slippery bandits. There's not a lot of events to compare to the book version in this episode because not much happened, but those are the 2 biggest departures. As for small things, in the book, new taxes pissed off the people of King's Landing, leading them to view Rhaenyra as vindictive and cruel. Plus, she's pretty fat by now. So once called the Realm's Delight, Rhaenyra is on the outs at this point in the book. But unlike in the show, some of Rhaenyra's small council remains intact after the move to King's Landing, and it's actually Lord Celtigar's taxes that upset the people of the city. So if the creators want to make it so the actions of men are screwing over the women in charge, they actively chose to leave one of the few instances of that actually happening out of the show. Rhaenyra doesn't go as far as to feed the nobles rats. Her son Joffrey that she recalled to King's Landing in this episode has some part to play later on. It depends on how fast they speed through the next portions of the book, but in book terms there's quite a few pages before he becomes relevant. Also, this is something I could mention every single episode, but Helaena didn't hate her dragon as the show asserted, and her not having any relationship with her very old, large dragon has certainly made it convenient for the writers to let things happen. Like Helaena not being able to just get on her dragon and leave when they tried to flee the city. Now, Torrhen Manderly doesn't really have a part to play in the story of the Dance of the Dragons, if I remember my reading correctly. He comes in after the dance has ended, so we'll see what the creators come up with for him to do. He'll probably just create problems for all the women, I guess. And lastly, just, in general, a lot of things are starting to happen out of order. But I think that's a long enough list of gripes with this episode and its departures from the source material. What did you think about this episode? If Season 2 had fulfilled its original vision and this had been the first episode of Season 3, would you have stuck around after this one? Can the Balls of Fury guy save this show? Let us know down in the comments. And remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to HateWatchers to stay up to date on House of the Dragon. Thank you for waiting for someone to tuck us in with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.